Okay, so welcome everyone to A Course in Miracles workshop presented by me, Cate Grieves, and this workshop's called Finding the Present. It's a section from A Course in Miracles, chapter 13, section 6. So we'll be going through this section today, and this workshop is for around 2.5 hours in the morning, and then a couple of hours after lunch. We're going to be recording the morning session, which will have most of the theory. In the afternoon, we're going to do an experiential, and I'll explain a little bit about that before I turn the recording off, so that if you want to continue, if you're listening to this recording on YouTube and you want to do this workshop with a friend, you can do this experiential. I'll explain it before I turn the recording off, so you can do it at home or in a group with your own friends. So these workshops are really were inspired by the sections of the course. So last week we did responsibility for sight. Today we're doing finding the present. I'll just give an introduction to today's workshop, and then we'll just have some quiet time, and we're going to say a prayer about our willingness. So finding the present, this section, there's a couple of different sections of the course. Some of them are all about the holy instant, but today this finding the present is about using Christ vision, really. That's what he uses, the word present and the word now. But really it's about coming to how we see our brother. So this is, when we listen to the teaching, we're going to hear him talking about how we're viewing our brother. And we're going to the focus of today is leaving the past behind. Just letting the past go. So we can't actually be in the present if we're bringing the past in. And so it's easier said than done. So it's a practice, it's a practical application. So this is the way we practice the course. So that's just a quick overview of what we'll be doing. And we'll be doing some experientials around it too. We'll do one this morning and one this afternoon. So just to start off, before we have some quiet time, just to sit in quietness, I would like just for everyone, if you feel guided, we're going to just say our prayer, open up, invite the Holy Spirit in to our minds. And I'm going to say my prayer, and then if anyone wants to share their prayer, it's always nice to share prayer, because it's nice. We get a lot out of when people share their Holy Spirit prayers. We get a lot out of it because we feel joined in that desire and that willingness that someone else is expressing. So even though you might feel, I feel a bit awkward saying my prayer out loud, you don't have to, but I would encourage you to share it, because it can be helpful. We're all here sharing our prayers. I know when I first started saying my Holy Spirit prayers out loud, it sounded unusual, but now I'm so used to it, it feels very normal. So my prayer is just going to be, so Holy Spirit, I'm here for your holy purposes. I'm here to be truly helpful. Thank you for guiding me to do this workshop. to be helpful. I'm completely free of how I do it, any outcomes. I'm just here right now, listening and following your guidance in what to say and do in every moment, which is helpful. And I've left behind the mind that thinks it knows anything or thinks it knows how anything should be. So Holy Spirit, just keep speaking through me, keep giving me the guidance, and I'm here and ready, listening and 100% willing to do whatever you ask me to do. Amen. So would anyone else like to share any? Nikki?
Holy Spirit, I am here. I am 100% willing to trust you. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Holy Spirit, for holding my hand and guiding me and reminding me that we are all one. Thank you.
Dear Holy Spirit, I'm really grateful to be here. You and everyone is one, and I pray for a totally open heart today. Thank you.
Holy Spirit, open our minds and hearts to the truth that we may see and recognize the only thoughts we really have and that are shared with you and everyone. Amen.
Thanks, Siri.
Jesus, Holy Spirit, I am so grateful that I discovered the truth and that I'm learning the truth of who I am and who we all are, all my brothers. I am grateful that I have learnt to trust in allowing myself to be guided. I am grateful that I mostly remember to do this, to ask for guidance, and then to trust and allow and follow that guidance. I'm here to be truly helpful, to help my brothers and myself to unwind back to who we truly are. Thank you.
Mike?
Oops, no, over there. No.
Oh, sorry.
Holy Spirit, help me to participate in this workshop. You today in the spirit of wholeness and unity and not on my own. Thank you.
Okay, so really it's the prayer is really just to say that I'm here and I'm ready and I'm open for deepening and further realisation of the truth. I'm here. So our prayer to the Holy Spirit is gratitude for what we already have, and an opening. I'm here to be willing to go past any fear that I experienced today in participating. I'm here to, for correction, for, help me see this differently as correction. So it's anything that comes up in my mind today, any fear, just help me throughout this workshop, that I'm here to practice forgiveness. And when I practice forgiveness, I come closer to the peace of God. So awakening is just having peace. It's having a peaceful mind that's free of the ego. And how do we get free of the ego? By practicing forgiveness. Forgiveness is having our misperceptions corrected. So that's what we need to do, is notice our misperceptions, not to make ourselves guilty for them, just to notice them and have them changed by the Holy Spirit. So today's, just got to get this up on YouTube to listen to the
reality leaves no room for any error. This means that you perceive a brother only at...
Right, so we're just going to listen to, he speaks quite quickly in this, so we are going to go through it in quite a bit of detail. So we'll just listen to it, and I'll just talk a little bit. I'll just stop it when I feel turn and talk a little bit about it.
Finding the present. To perceive truly is to be aware of all reality through the awareness of your own. But for this, no illusions can rise to meet your sight, for reality leaves no room for any error. This means that you perceive a brother only as you see him now. His past has no reality in the present, so you cannot see it. Your past reactions to him are also not there, and if it is to them that you react, you see but an image of him that you made and cherish instead of him. In your questioning of illusions, ask yourself if it is really sane to perceive what was as now. If you remember the past as you look upon your brother, you will be unable to perceive the reality that is now.
Okay, so I'm just going to give out these worksheets. So if you just take the first 3 copies and pass it on. And has everyone got their Course in Miracles book? Okay, so let's open up at chapter 13, section 6.
Kate, are you using the FIP one?
I think they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, I was reading on Kindle with the atonement, and he's changed a few things, so I might just go and grab the FIP.
I'm using the Circle of Atonement one, but I...
Oh, are you? Because, yeah, it reads a little differently to what...
Oh, does it? Okay.
Left word out.
13.
6.
He actually left a word out that actually changed the meaning of something he said.
Okay. So,
Continuous present.
yeah, so it's in the Circle of Atonement, it's called the continuous present, and in the FIP version, it's called Finding the Present.
Can you give it to Kate, please?
So try not to read ahead on the notes.
Sorry, Kate, chapter 13.
Section 6.
What's the title of section 6?
It's either called Finding the Present or the Continuous Present. Okay. So let's do the 5-minute quietness just now, just so we can, what I've sort of quieten the mind, because as we did last workshop, we're going to really go into some words. We want to really slow the mind right down, just to be really still. So let's just have 5 minutes. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just, you can just stay in that quietness. I'm just going to read the paragraph again, but slowly, because sometimes the listening to it spoken very quickly, and we really need to slow this down and really contemplate, really, you know, get what's being said, because it's not worth listening to something if you're not really fully understanding it, getting something revealed to you through, you know, this illumination. So he's starting off this first paragraph. He's telling us about a state of mind that has no error in it. So he's starting off straight away from what they call level 1, the mind that is clear. So he says, to perceive truly is to be aware of all reality through the awareness of your own. So he's telling us that we will have an awareness of our own, of true reality, and that is to perceive truly. But for this, no illusions can rise to meet your sight, for all reality leaves no room for any error. So in other words, reality is a clear state of mind that knows itself as spirit, as love, as the divine. So that is true reality. And so in that state of mind, no illusions can rise to meet your sight. Now, when we hear the word see and sight, I want you to hear this as perception. It's nothing to do with eyes. This means that you perceive a brother only as you see him now. So in the clear, awakened, peaceful mind that has no illusions that rise to meet its sight, you're perceiving a brother as you see or perceive him now. His past has no reality in the present, and you cannot see it. So in other words, you cannot see your brother's past. You cannot perceive your brother's past in the present, in a clear, awakened mind. You cannot see it. Not so when we're in our ego mind, we can see the past, and it does come into colour, but what he's telling us straight out of a mind that is clear, and he's telling us that you will not be able to see anyone's past. It will not happen. Your past reactions to him are also not there. In other words, you've had past reactions to someone when the past comes in to colour your view of your brother. But in a clear, he's talking about a state of mind. Can't see the past, and so your past reactions, how you've reacted in the past, are also not there. And if it is to these that you react now, and if you are reacting from past reactions, you see but an image of him that you made and cherish instead of him. And the him is his true self. So we make an image. We are responsible for making that image, that perception of him. and we cherish it. In other words, we want it. So in your questioning of delusions, in other words, I'm deluded and insane when I see a brother when I use my past to see my brother, I am deluded. In your questioning of delusions, ask yourself if it is really sane to perceive what was now. So in that sentence, and I've written this in the notes, I'm just going to say that sentence in a different way so it can help you understand what he's pointing to there. So he's asking us to question our delusions. He says, ask yourself, is it really sane? Am I sane if I perceive what was, which is the past, now? So when I meet my brother now, is it sane for me to perceive what was, which is what I believe my past relationship with this brother, what was. So if I'm recalling and calling on the past, he's asking us, is this sane? Is this the sane thing to do? Ask yourself. So I want you to each just sit and think for a few minutes. Think about what Jesus is asking us to do. He's asking us to question ourselves and say, when I meet my brother now, and I bring all my past story of him with me, is that sanity? Just have a few minutes to contemplate this, think about it. The other thing that you might like to ask yourself is, does it bring me peace when I meet my brother and I bring all this history and past with me? Is it peaceful for me to do that? So we have to, the only reason we're going to want to practice something else is if we really look at what it's bringing us, when we bring the past with us, when we meet a brother, when we bring the whole story of the past. Is it bringing me joy and peace, which is sanity? So I'm just going to read on. You consider it natural to use your past experience as a reference point from which to judge the present. So when we meet a brother, and we all do this, and I know I did it too, was that we think it's very natural and right to do this, but I have to bring all my past learning to meet everyone because it's going to keep me safe. It's helpful in some way. So we're using the ego, but so I was just felt this little thing that came in. It was just pushed into my mind then. So I think I'll share about this, is that I had a fear of, men that looked like motorcycle bikies, you know, I'm not sure what they call them overseas, but here in Australia, they're motorcycle bike riders that have got leathers on, tattoos, you know, studs, look really tough. And I had fear, a lot of fear around men that look like that. So I would go out of my way to avoid them. And part of my mind training was one day I had to go to Vic Roads, which is where we get your registration and your licences, motor car licences done. And there was only one seat left in the room, and it was next to what seemed to be a big, tough, bikey looking guy. And I sat next to him, and my guidance was to talk to him and just to engage him in conversation. And it was really beautiful and healing. And he started to, because I had no fear of him, and I was just sharing just in a very beautiful, open-hearted way, he started to very quickly confide in me about some difficulties he was having with his children. And he went into, you know, quite a lot of detail, and we were probably sitting there for about 20 minutes, half an hour waiting to be served. And I saw how my preconceived past was, you know, being washed away. Can I meet this brother without my past fear of what? So the ego mind says, this is what these type of people are like, and to be safe, sit right away, because what if you were to upset them? They might have a knife on them. They might, you know, find out who you are and come and get you if you've, because, you know, who knows what the story is. So we can look at all the different aspects of judgment that we give to the different bodies and different clothes they wear, whether they have tattoos, whether they have bald heads, whether, say for women, whether they have a coiffured look, whether they have a hippie look, all these different looks that people present. We can look at the story that we have about our past, the past associations, and we can start to notice that the ego puts people into categories and labels them. And, you know, because the ego is always trying to keep us safe as a body, it's always saying, you know, that one over there that looks this particular way, be careful of them, go over and associate with these ones that look this way. And you'll find that everybody has a different thing. You know, a lot of people feel safe with people in business suits, whereas someone else, like maybe a bikie, wouldn't want to associate with someone wearing a suit or a particular hairstyle or a particular skin colour. You know, maybe someone with a turban on, or a hijab, what do they call the Muslim thing. So we've got to look at all the different characters, the different body shapes and types. I know I've heard people say that they can't stand talking to people that are overweight. You know, I've met someone that didn't like people that were really thin because she'd been a nurse and she'd nursed. People get very thin just before they die. So she was really triggered by people that were thin. So we start to look at all the bodies, and we notice, because, you know, you will see people's reactions to just somebody in an airport or in a group or anywhere. They're just like, they get triggered because they've got a past association. So this particular teaching is going to just make us more and more aware of the past associations when we meet brothers. Now, the ultimate goal is to come to every brother without any past and meet everyone in the present without any past judgments, associations, anything. So it's really going into that teaching of, you know, hold on to nothing and come with empty hands, come with an empty mind. So this is saying a similar thing, but calling it into how we view our brother. So I'll keep reading here. You consider it natural to use your past experience as the reference point from which to judge the present. Yet this is unnatural because it is delusional. When you have learned to look upon everyone with no reference at all to the past, either his or yours, as you perceived it, you will be able to learn from what you see now. For the past can cast no shadow to darken the present unless you are afraid of light. And only if you are afraid of light would you choose to bring this darkness with you. And by holding it in your mind, see it as a dark cloud that shrouds your brothers and conceals their reality from your sight. I've just got some other notes here. I'm just going to read this out. These are things that I wrote as I read through this yesterday. What is the present? To be clear, the present is not in time. It is not something you find on a clock. It is not the space between the seconds ticking away on a clock. Think about what the present means. With prayer, Holy Spirit, please reveal what the present is. Please give me this experience. So we've already seen here that the present is having no past. He's using this term, the present and the now, to get us to come to everybody without a past. In that, so it's not in time. It's a state of where your mind is the past is completely dropped away, and you are meeting your brother right now without the past. So I think I might move into the experiential now.
We can't ask questions at this point.
Let's do the experiential first. And it's based on what we did in paragraph 1, which is it really sane to perceive what was, which is our past, now? In other words, when I perceive the past, lay it over my brother, rather than what is here now, is this sane? So I'd just like you to sit quietly and close your eyes, and I'll just take you through this experiential. I want you to think about some people that you've met in the past week or so. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be, whatever comes to your mind, just somebody that maybe you've had some difficulty with someone in the past month or even the past year. Think about that interaction and really slow it down and become aware of the thoughts that were in your mind before you met up with them. The thoughts that were in your mind when you were with them and the thoughts that were in your mind afterwards. I want you to just notice, if you can, become really aware if you had any fear when you were going to meet this person. It would have to come from the past. Think about you being with them, talking with them. And just notice the fear in your mind, the judgments that you have about them and about yourself when you're with them. And then notice when you leave them, what thoughts come in as well. All you need to do is become aware that when you met them, you were using the past. That's all you have to notice, that you have a past with that person and that you use the past to meet them. You use the past before you met them, you use the past while you were with them, and you use the past afterwards. You would have been judging them, comparing, maybe guilt was there. You would have judged things they said, things they did. Not to make yourself bad or guilty for any of this, you just want to be like a drone above the battleground. Imagine yourself like a little drone, watching yourself, meeting them, watching the thoughts that were going through your mind. But what you really need to get in touch with is how it was the past. And you might notice, this is something that I noticed over time, was there was particular, especially family members like sisters and brothers, I would fall into some type of different behaviour when I was with each of them. I had like this particular way I was from past. I'd notice these habits. I would change with different people. My older sister, I would fall back into being the younger sister. My younger sister, I would change, I would be different with her. You're all based on past. Friends, based on what they like to do, what they would like to talk about. I would change. Also, I had embedded, deeply grained conditional thinking about each person. It would always be based on judgments and the past. I would be saying they're like this. Just notice how you think you know what they're like. Just notice your patterns. Now I want you to imagine when you're meeting this, especially a person that you seem to have a lot of grievances or guilt, or there's something about them that you don't like. Imagine yourself with a veil over your face. And when you've met that brother, you can't see him. It's a veil. It's not completely blocking out the sight of him. But if you could imagine, it's like you can only see 50% of him. And I'm talking now as a metaphor, as eyesight, seeing him. But imagine if you're wearing a veil over your face and you're trying to talk to your brother, but you can't see him properly because the veil is between you and him. The veil stops you from really seeing him. This is an analogy that Jesus uses about the veil, but it's really our past that colours our mind from seeing our brother truly. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to think about, you know, how if we did have a veil over our face, hey, we couldn't really see our brother. And we might be moving our head around, you know, trying to see him, but we can't. Now think about this person that you have a difficult past with. Would it be possible for you to meet this person without the past, without the veil? What if your past got erased from your mind and you couldn't remember anything about this person? What if you were to meet him and you knew nothing about him or her? Just imagine meeting them and the past was gone. What Jesus gets us to do is go one step further, 2 steps to release the past, so you get to empty of the past, and then true vision can come in. You see your brother through holiness. The holiness, you can't see your brother through the holy mind unless you drop the past. You have to be really willing to say, I want to drop the past, or else I keep myself in hell. I keep myself in an delusion, in an insane, in my insanity. So we find the present, which is just a clear view, empty of the past. That is the present. So the present is like a portal in our mind that is free of all past associations. So I want you to now consider both these situations that you've thought about. One, where you've brought the past with you, with this particular person, and the experience you've had where you've brought the past with you, and then the other experience where you've let the past go. You might just see yourself with a big smile on your face when you've let the past go. You might just sort of see your arms going out Just saying, oh, it's just so lovely to meet you, so lovely to see you. So you might feel yourself opening up a bit. Just feel this, because without the past, without even, you know, we're talking about not only our conditioned egoic personal stuff, but all the stuff the world believes. You know, if you're a Muslim, you would hate Westerners. If you're a Westerner, you would be brainwashed into hating Muslims, because this is the fear. Everyone's fearing each other. Whatever you know, we're brainwashed by the world's views, by all the egos getting together and deciding, and in our in all these different groups, whatever we listen to, wherever we are, whatever our family, our friends, our teachers, our school, our culture, our society, our country, all things that they really have no reality, because a country is an invisible boundary that keeps particular bodies together, and it says this is ours, you know. So it's the mind that's created the boundary. There's no boundaries anywhere. So you can maybe look at your own personal conditioning past that you bring, and then you might find that the media has conditioned you as well about certain cultures, about certain skin colours, body shapes, clothing that people wear, hairstyles, all that sort of stuff. We've got to notice that that's all conditioning us, and we have to go beyond all of that to meet every brother without a past. So this is the practice that we do. So if you could have that experience of meeting someone that you've had some issues with, even just this one person that we did now, and feel, if I met them without a past, how would it feel? You can see the contrast. So the teaching of the Holy Spirit is by contrasting it. That's how he teaches us. He gets us to look. So when you're quietly sitting at home and you've got some issue coming up, you bring that issue up to the Holy Spirit and you say, Holy Spirit, today I met somebody and I had this past conditioning from somewhere. You don't even have to really know where it is from. Just say, I seem to have this judgment on this type of people or this type of clothing that some people wear, and I feel I can't speak to them. I feel scared of them. I feel guilty about them, or whatever. And just let all that past go and just come empty of past and just meet your brother in the present. So the present is without the past. Meeting with an empty mind, empty of past. So the contrast between those two is the teaching. First of all, I see how I meet my brother with my ego past, and then I meet him with emptiness. Now we're going to go a bit further this afternoon. We're going to actually we've dropped the past, but then we're going to bring in the holiness of them. So we're going to look beyond everything and we're going to meet holiness. We're going to meet the holy self within them. Okay, Annie, did you want to ask a question?
You sort of answered in a certain way, because like we were talking about, like the present moment isn't really in time. So I always think of that as the holy instant where there really is no past at all. sort of thing. So it's a really out of time moment sort of thing. Whereas like I think experientially for a moment, for me, when I was there was it was still, I guess, more miracle minded in a sense that I was meeting, like it still had a relationship to time in a sense. There was the timelessness which I felt more associated with sort of thing. And there was a sense of timelessness there, but there was still an association with the past, I guess, because it was still in perception, I think, and so of course you still had everything arising in consciousness, but there was a different response to it in a sense, or there was a lot of fear had been loosened, so there was a different response to what was arising.
So I was going to ask everyone if they would like to share. You don't have to share what anything that you got from doing that little visualization. Would you like to share in a little bit more?
Yeah, I would actually, because quite a number of things came up for me then, and it's a very interesting, because it's almost like for me, it's sort of like things of judgments that I never felt like I had before. All of a sudden, it's like seeing all these judgments that are there that weren't there. Like I noticed a while ago, all of a sudden, there was almost a fear of Black people in America. Not everywhere, but in certain sections sort of thing. Whereas I wouldn't be scared of a Black person from England, say, and because there's this idea that a lot of Black Americans are very identified with their Black, with their skin color, and have a lot of identity and victimization and stuff around it, so that they would be more defensive and stuff, so more dangerous in a certain way. But anyway, like there was one grievance that with a particular girl that I have for a long time, and it was, I can't remember, I think it was in a dream, but I had this dream where it didn't look like her, but it was like we were coming towards each other, and there was just absolute joy to see each other. We were just so happy to see each other, and I knew it was her, but it didn't look like her sort of thing. And that was in the dream. But when I, like the next day, if I thought about her, the grievance was still there, very tightly. And so she was coming up again in the exercise, and it was sort of maybe going very deeply into the way I perceived her looking when she came to mind, whatever face she seemed to be making or whatever. If she looked at me, like I might see her as really smug, even if you were trying to extend or join with her, it would be like, and so I don't feel like it's completely cleared, but there might have just been a little bit of loosening in some of those concepts around.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So we're really just trying to get a loosening today. You may find that you get some really deep, something really deep and clear, or it may just be just some really light, like you say, just a loosening, because it's the contrast. As I said, it's the contrast that when we go into it, take the time to sit and imagine these two different scenarios. Contrast.
I'm just sort of getting to, like, that loosening might allow that dream experience to come more sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now that there's a bit of loosening about it, it might be able to sort of
Yes.
enter in a little bit more, and maybe even help flush flush out some more of that darkness, because obviously that dream was a very,
Yeah, the dream was the Holy Spirit giving you the answer, giving you a dream to bring into this dream, you could say, to
and
meet
it was
your brother, George.
experiential. Yeah, it was very experiential. It wasn't sort of just an idea or something. There was
Yes. So the Holy Spirit and Jesus can work out in our nighttime mind.
and it's sort of like, oh wow, this is sort of how we really feel about each other, sort of thing.
Yes.
And like here we are sort of almost pretending that we're, we hate each other.
Yes. That's fantastic. Yes, here we are pretending not to like each other or hating each other. We're pretending.
What I was thinking, and
yeah, I'll give you the microphone.
I found it a little bit confusing because, like, part of me was sort of saying, okay, got to think about this. We're seeing the person with Christ's vision, but I couldn't do that. What I was thinking was how when we think of someone like, okay, so I thought of someone who I've had difficulty with, and what it does is it puts an expectation on the person when we're viewing them with the past. It's putting an expectation on them that they have to behave the same way, and that we can't see them any other way. And it's like, it's not fair, and it's insane. I know it's insane, but like I was still really thinking about this. It's obviously ego thinking, like, and I was thinking, even if you've had a really enjoyable experience with someone, it's the same thing, like you have an expectation. This person has to act the same way, and it's not fair, it's like, how can the person, and I know this all sounds so stupid because the person is in my mind, and I know the mind isn't there, but I'm doing that. How can the person know to behave the way I want them to behave, the way my experience has been?
Yes, that's a good point.
And I know this all sounds so stupid because, I know the person isn't there, and that everyone that we encounter, yes, if we see them in the present, they are just beautiful and changeless. They can't be either good or bad or any different. And yes, it's a joyful, beautiful experience, but it's very confusing, Yeah, so,
were you able to see the person without the past?
Yes.
Like, did you get the contrast?
Yes.
And then you feel.
I did. Oh, it was beautiful.
You feel the difference.
Yeah.
Usually you generally feel a difference in your body sensations. Sometimes some people don't have that awareness, but some people have a lot of body sensations that go along with the thoughts.
Yeah.
So the past are past thoughts, because in lesson 5 I only see the past. So yes, you get the contrast, and that's getting that contrast is the teaching, because you say, well, I can see how meeting my brother without a past feels really good. And if I want to be free, if I want to have peace, then this is the teaching. Okay, so let me try and do it the best I can. Let me practice this, meeting each brother without a past. Does anyone else want to share about anything they want to share about the what you went through?
Something strange.
Yeah, sure.
I was thinking of my brother-in-law who is in heaven, And
Could you speak up a little bit, Del?
All right, just speak up a little bit.
all right, can you hear me now? I was thinking about my brother-in-law who is in heaven now, and we are a very big family, so we all had an opinion about him, me included, and I probably had all the opinions of everybody added to my own opinion. So he had absolutely no chance of being decent. And so I saw him the way I had subjected him to all those negative opinions. And then I saw him as freed from all prejudices, the past, and all. It was just totally different. It was just like dark and light.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I've got so much work to do.
Kim, do you want to share?
I had a lot of resistance to that. I couldn't even imagine it. Normally, I'm pretty good with my imagination. I think I am, but yeah, there was just a big block there, and I just couldn't see that person without, all the stuff. I just couldn't do it.
Well, see, it does say here that you cherish the past. You really cherish those judgments.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with holding on to the past.
Yeah.
But what I think what there's practical application is to say, how do you feel when you bring the past with you to see, to look at that person? How does it make you feel?
I just disconnected and cut off, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not happy and joyful and peaceful, is it?
It's horrible.
So that's really the contrast is, do I want peace or do I want to be right about my past judgments?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong. I think it's really good to notice that you have a block, because a lot of people...
I can see I want my past judgments. Sure.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I want to let you go.
And that's fine.
Yeah, that's the...
Yeah. And it's... There's nothing wrong with that. That's just to be really clear. There's nothing wrong with holding on to your past judgments, except that you just get to suffer from them.
Yeah.
That's it. The other person doesn't, because they're only suffering from their past judgments. Yeah. I'm only suffering from mine. So it's really just that knowing that if I was to give them up, I would benefit. I'm the one that benefits from it, because they can only benefit from giving up their past judgments.
Yeah, I can see I've suffered a lot. And still.
Yeah. That was good. It was really good. I was hoping someone might bring that up. Anyone else want to share?
It's really reminding me of like Byron Katie's, who would I be without that thought? Who would I be without that thought that so-and-so is blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. Thanks, Sammy.
Yeah, I met someone a few days ago who kind of reminded me, he was like a young man, and he reminded me of a bit of myself in past years. I mean, he was very idealistic. He had these strong views which he was putting forward, and there are ideas which I would have agreed with, like sort of political kind of things, but I had this sort of strong resistance against him at the time, and I think that was maybe I was trying to sort of put myself on a higher level than him at the time, and so during that exercise I sort of saw that quite clearly. That was the past, and when that fell away, it just felt that resistance towards him drop away, and it felt really good in my body. less fear and resistance in the end. So yeah, it was a good exercise.
Yeah, that's good. Would anyone else like to share? Yes, Patricia. So I'll just read a little bit more, just to bring this home. Jesus wants us to not only meet every brother without any past, but to see him in light. The past is our own darkness in us, which gets projected to the shadowed bodies in our dream. So this is just to remember that this is our dream. Bodies mean nothing. Like all the bodies in this room, all the bodies that you've thought about, anything they say. So just, this is something you can just become mindful of, is the person that you picked in your visualisation really means nothing. They're just a body. It's imagine, you could even just imagine, you holding a little baby. And if you had that same projection to a little baby, that's what you're doing, because it's literally a body. Do you see? So if you have some resistance or judgment on it, you've given a meaning to the words they've said, their body movements, their facial expressions. Your mind is giving the meaning to a figure in a dream. That's the highest, that's the sort of the higher perspective of this teaching, but we're going in layers today because we're caught up in believing this world is real. So we're unwinding from it through, we have to start where we are, which is, hey, I believe this person is doing this to me, but we actually come to see, actually, they're not doing anything. I'm layering a past over them. Every time I meet them, I'm meeting the past. So something that can also help you, especially if you have issues with family members, you can start to see that when you get around with siblings and you talk about your mother or your father, a lot of them have a different view. Some of it overlaps, but some of it can be very different. Some of your family members can really love or really strongly hate the father or the mother, and you're going to have a different view. So if it was ultimately true, because truth can have no change in it, so if that person was really, really like that, it would be true for everybody all the time. So he says in the lessons that we have some shared views, but we have to see that we're going to be sharing because we're, some share, and then others are just like, oh no, this is what he's like. And you might, another example is if two people meet the same person and they come away and they have a different experience, it's got to be your perception. It has to be. It's glaringly obvious that someone comes away and says, oh, did you see that look they gave me? I don't think they like me. And it's like, what are you talking about? They were really nice. What is it that's telling me? Did you see that look? My unworthiness was, which is the ego, says, oh, they're too good for me. They're not, why would they want to talk to me? So therefore I must find in their facial expression a look that says, yeah, they don't like me. Oh yeah, they dismiss something. They talked over me. They looked away when I spoke. Something. Or they got on their phone. I'm going to find the evidence for it. My perception is going to look at the body movements, words, and find the evidence that I'm unworthy, that I'm not worthy of their love and their time, and then it's going to quickly flip around and make them guilty and not me. So the perception is the veil. So to come without a past, so we come without, not only, so the first thing is to notice your past. You have to notice the past that you're overlaying, the veil that you're seeing through. And you'll notice it'll be different. I started to notice on my journey, you know, I just had to look at everyone. You know, I looked at what I was perceiving in my father was different to what I was perceiving in my mother. To, you know, I've got one of 6 children. Every single family brother or sister had a different, tiny little bit different of perception overlaid. But you can guarantee that I wasn't looking through the present. I wasn't looking through the portal of no past. I was constantly meeting my brothers and sisters. I was talking about them to each other. I was gossiping. I was making sure that I was right. And gathering the people around me that would, you know, say those right things. And if anyone didn't, I'd be really upset if my brothers and sisters didn't agree. And you know, so anyway, these are, we can start to look at what we do when we're in our ego and how we do it, and how all the egos get together and want to agree, and so we have to come to a new place where we don't gossip, have an opinion about anyone, you know, to hold no opinion about anyone. That's where, and that's like to be, you know, to have, so, and it feels strange because when someone comes in to say, yeah, guess what they did now, and, you know, the big running story that you've got with all the other egos in your life, it's like, oh, guess what this person did now, you know what they're like. Wow, I have to drop all of that. How am I actually going to communicate with that person that we've been joined in this dysfunctional past stuff? Well, I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to say, well, you know what, you know, they did something, you know, maybe we're looking at this wrongly, and, you know, I'm just sort of deciding not to judge this person anymore, and you can just sort of use some very gentle words just to let that person know that you're not going to be doing this judging, because especially when you're in a big judgment, you know, I've had people say to me over the years, oh, you see the good in everyone. It's no use talking to you.
You're no fun.
You're first, Cate.
Yes. You know what, I'm like, oh, that's the highest compliment you can give, you know. Because you just see everyone clearly. This was someone that's not in spirituality, it's part of my family, but, you know, just knows that there's nothing they can say about anyone that I'll ever agree with. I'll never agree because I can't. My mind's healed of that. So that was their way of saying what they were perceiving in me. But having said that, as an ego, you think it's very natural to draw on your past associations of meeting your brother. So we have to, this is we're moving, and it's just for us. We don't have to get anyone else to do this. It's not our job to say to someone, hey, you know, you need to change.
You really do see too how your mind actually really goes out to look to prove you're right too, and you really start seeing how it's really gathering the evidence to prove you're right and someone else is wrong, or they really are, you know, this is really the way it is, sort of thing. You really sort of see how it really does that.
Yeah.
And to make someone else guilty, you know, to project the guilt out and everything.
And it's important to not make ourselves wrong about any of this, because we're really just like, you know, above the battleground, looking at ourselves going, oh, there I am doing it again. You know, not to judge ourselves, but just to notice that, how do you feel when you do that? You know, how do you feel? You don't feel happy. You don't feel in this, you know, this loving Christ mind, you don't feel joyful. You feel like you sneakily want to get away with a judgment. You know, you want to find someone that's going to agree with you, and you're going to try to sneakily, you know, because you're studying the course, you're going to sneakily try to get away with it with people that don't know that you're not meant to be judging. That you're practicing this. So you'll find that you'll be sort of seduced into some areas like that, and you have to be really strict with yourself, because it'll be very easy when you're around other egos and they're all doing the ego talk that, okay, well, I can just slip in here and have my ego judgment on this person, because there's no Course in Miracles people here to look at me and go, what did you just say?
And I mean, even with Course in Miracles people, like, they're still reflecting the world. Like I sort of, you know, like, and you seem to form a relationship with someone, and there comes in really even more strongly now. It's like the spiritual, you know, you're judging from the spiritual egos.
Yes.
Pointing that way, but it's still the same thing, sort of thing. And
it is the same thing, but
it is kind of like, you know, how, like, oh, you know, you've built this new relationship doing the same thing as if it's different, sort of.
Yes, it is. But generally, you just, you know, like, it's, how can I say it? It's like on my journey, when I was around Course in Miracles people, I was more aware of what I was really meant to be doing and practicing it, because I knew that they were all practicing it, you know.
Well, this is the thing. I find, like, I get surprised because it doesn't sound like they're practicing, because I know what I was like in a higher mind. I just didn't have those sort of thoughts about people entering my mind. And when I'm around people that have been with it for a long time and say their mind's really trained, and they seem to say all this stuff about people, I'm kind of astounded, because, like I said, in my experience, at a certain level, those thoughts about people just wouldn't have entered my mind to have about someone, sort of thing.
Yes. So that's right. So the first paragraph, he talks about that mind that can't judge, won't judge, and if it does have a judgment, it flees. It's seen as false very quickly. So he's talking about, so if someone is a Course in Miracles student is saying that they're clear, and you see them have a judgment on someone, they're just asleep. They're not aware. So the worst thing you can ever do in your journey is to literally say, I'm awake and I'm done. Right? Because this journey is about, it's about sneezing, no. This journey is about an ever-deepening mind. So you can have moments. Jesus talks about the veil comes down. If you're not careful, it'll come back down. You can be awake for years. I've talked to people who've called me from overseas and said, I was clear for 6 years and then something happened. And I said, Jesus says you have to be vigilant, because the ego will come back. You have to really, this has to be a stabilised practice, right? Because so the more you stabilise in it and remain in it, it will, you know, be in it. So for me, on my journey, I've had that clarity. I've had where the past has fallen away. I've done all these practices for many years, and I gave you a couple of examples today of things that I looked at. So you just reorientate your life to using the world as a classroom. So everyone I meet is just going to show me where I'm still holding something. That's it. So my husband, my children, my parents, anytime I have any perception of them that isn't in the present clear. I've still got some tiny little something around them. But if you find it, what happens with some people, they'll have a clarity, they'll have an opening, they'll have some sort of what we call awakening, but it closes down and they still say they're awake, but they're literally not, because they're still judging others, and they're not peaceful. And so what happens is students of theirs get very confused. And there's been a few cases around, if you're in spiritual groups, there's a few cases that are around where, you know, you've had these really great spiritual teachers, very clear and very helpful, and then they've just gone back into complete ego darkness, judging, screaming at people. You know, there's one guy holding big retreats, sleeping with all the women, you know, yelling at them, you know, and that's not awakened behaviour. That's not love. And so when I went through my process of awakening, I got a teacher and she said, be really vigilant for this. She said, never think you've arrived, never think you've got it, just always remain in, you know, really deep humility, and always remain watching. You said there's subtle ego things around in your mind. You have to be vigilant. And so Jesus says the same thing. He's telling us even in here, you know, we're going to get to that stage, but we still have to be vigilant. You still do have to remain vigilant.
I've got to say, like, I do, it's funny, it's like the big teachers that I've sort of come across, like, although they've got a lot to offer, it's like I have demonstrations, and that could be like, you know, like there was a guy just opening the door at the hospital. I think he was a doorman at the hospital, opening the door for Johnny in the car. And Johnny goes, wow, he was a nice man. Like, he didn't do anything. He just opened the door. And for Johnny to say that, like, and then I just got the flash of vision, and I just went, he's not just a nice man, he remembers who he is, sort of thing. But I have these demonstrations where there is this humility that comes through these particular demonstrations, and I would include that you as one of those demonstrations. And it's sort of funny because it's like all the flash and glamour, you know, of the ego likes the flash and glamour and the certainty and rah almost of these bigger teachers and stuff. That's almost like a high, like you're riding on a high or something.
Yeah.
But it's this quiet, it's what I would say, there's a quietude that comes through
Yes.
particular demonstrations that I have in my mind, and it's just very simple, and like it's just a simple humility. It's like a quiet acceptance and just being about Father's business. There's no rah about it, in a sense.
So I like what the Buddha said, you know, don't idolise me, just idolise the teachings that come through me. So for me, as a teacher, don't idolise me, because if you put me on a pedestal, your ego will knock me off, and it means that you won't come and enjoy the teaching. So don't. I'm not special, and my guidance is to never make anything special about me. The only thing special about me was my dedication and commitment, and if I can give you that as something that powers you, that's all you really need to do, is just that's something that I would like you to take as something to take on.
Yeah.
And just also to know that anyone that has access or says, you know, I'm hearing the voice of Jesus or hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, that is not special. We all have the same access to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Nobody is special because of that. And it can, at times, I've sort of seen it a little bit, some people, they get a little bit of specialness about it. It's not special at all. Anyone that's saying, I'm hearing the Holy Spirit, and I know, like with Penelope, she's been great in this group. She's not here today, but she's been a wonderful, and a few people have commented to me how helpful she's been. And I've told her, because she's very dedicated and she's very willing, very committed, and she sort of, really does a lot of quietness to hear the Holy Spirit. And so, we went through that Holy Spirit, how to hear the Holy Spirit's voice last year in a series of about 8 weeks. Every week we met and we went through this teaching. And there was different things that were given to us, and but it's really our own effort and willingness to listen to the Holy Spirit and sit and listen to that quiet voice, because the ego does shriek and talk really loudly. So we're the ones that has to choose to listen to the Holy Spirit. It's like it's got to come from our desire for that small quiet voice. Jesus, some people prefer Jesus, some prefer the Holy Spirit. It's really what your mind is ready to accept. And so that's why I think those two aspects of help are offered to us. Some people have, angels and, different, but Jesus is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. That we can have other teachers, some have Bruno Groening, to help us. So it doesn't matter what you use, it's what works for you. But it's important to know that no one is special. No one's, everybody's equal in this group. And really, as a teacher, Jesus says in the Course, as a teacher to us, he wants us to go to lead him as his teacher and be our own, come into the same mind that he had, be the same as him, and have the same mind that wrote the Course, have that awakened mind that sees clearly. So it's a lifelong journey, and we just reorientate our lives.
But we do have demonstrations. You know what I mean? Like there are demonstrations that demonstrate those qualities and characteristics of the teacher of God to help remind us of what is on offer from our own relinquishment of the past.
And if you look around and
a different way of being in the world and not of it, sort of thing too.
If you look around and you see some teachers and you think, well, look, I don't think that that's really awakened behaviour or something. Just the way I just saw it was just be what I would want to look up to. Be that yourself. Be the teacher that you would want to sit with. Why not be that? Be the one that you would like to go to, because someone's going to come to you searching for that same one that you want. If you can't find it, be it yourself. Be it for others, because isn't that beautiful to be that quiet presence that's open and loving? We can all be that. Just that's what Jesus is asking us. Don't look for someone else to be that. Be it yourself, and then you can be that Christ presence for others. And really, for me, that's been my life, just to do that as best I can and where I'm at. And I am deepening over the years. And also, Jesus says that what he had wasn't special, that we can all have it. It's potential in us. And that's what our message should be. Don't put anyone in awe. It's not suitable for your brothers, but just to have some respect and see everyone like an older brother or an older sister, really.
Because in a sense, if you always look for someone, you know, to be up there, then you'll never find it in yourself, will you? Because you're always looking out there for it.
Yeah, teachers and teachings do help us,
Mm.
but we have to be really careful that we don't put any teachers on a pedestal. We can be great. I think it's really nice to have gratitude towards a teacher and say, hey, what you showed me, your dedication and your commitment to studying the course and practicing forgiveness and, you know, spending time joining with Jesus. That's really what we should be grateful for, a teacher that shows us the peace and love that they emit and the openness that they emit, and have gratitude. And but unless you're really aiming for that for yourself, people get stuck in with teachers on pedestals, and all they do is just spend years and years and years idolising a teacher rather than actually really bringing it back to themselves and saying, what's happening for me? What part, you know, like I've been with people and say I was doing this, they'd talk about the teacher and what they did and what experience they had, and I'd say, well, what are you doing when you're meeting your mother and father this year? What experience are you having? And then they'd go back to talking about the teacher again. You see, it's so easy for the ego to say, hey, I want to idolise this teacher, rather than look at the past that I'm doing right now over the people in my lives. And it's a delaying distraction. It's a distraction, it's a delaying, but it looks spiritual.
Which includes the teacher, the past I'm overlaying on the teacher too.
Right, exactly. So you start to see the ways we can get caught up, the resistance to wanting to do this. Oh, I'll just talk about my teacher, and I'll just, you know, hey, you guys, you know, I'll send you an email about what he said this week, and I'm going to look like I'm really helpful. But hey, don't get me to do forgiveness this week. I'll just be helpful to everyone else, but don't let me look at my past that I'm overlaying on everyone, even like you say, even on my teacher.
And if we have the pedestal thing going, we don't see that every single person is teaching us.
Yes,
Really.
that's it. Yeah, everyone's my teacher.
Yeah,
everyone.
That's what it says in here.
Everyone is my teacher.
It's funny. I recently joined an online meditation group, and it was with the Centering Prayer Group. So they have a lot of basically they're from a Catholic tradition and very much see themselves as Christians. And I thought I was going. It's funny. Recently, I've realised about a few things I've done that I really didn't know what I was doing them for at the time, but I've only recently sort of seen, oh, it was actually for this, not that sort of thing. And they started talking about how we can all aspire to be saints. And it was really good because I said, that's really not my goal at all. And I'm really grateful because we're all just brothers walking each other home now. And I could see that the guru concept had really sort of,
Yes.
I mean, there might be a little few threads back. I can't say it's totally undone. There could be a few threads there. But the guru concept had really been and I think that was really all I was there for, to sort of see that had actually been washed away quite a bit, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to just finish up for the morning session, and we'll turn the recording off. So I just want to read that you know, we've got another 10 minutes, so I'll just go through a little bit of this. To be born again is to let the past go. We are not practicing letting the past go to help anyone else but ourselves. Even though this vision extends to all aspects of the sonship, this practice brings us peace. So if you really desire peace, this is the practice, one practice to bring us peace. This is forgiveness and accepting the atonement for ourselves, which helps all minds become free, even though we will never be aware of how this happens. Okay, so we've got a thunderstorm here, and I think some of our lights went out. If the computer turns off, just know that electricity's gone off. Kathy, can you still hear me? Annie? Oh, it's gone off.